It's time for On Target Radio, Chicagoland's only radio show dedicated to educating, entertaining, and discussion of firearms, legislation, and your Second Amendment rights. Presented in part by the Illinois State Rifle Association, Illinois Gun Works, Pelcher's Shooters Supply, and Safer USA. Here's your host, firearm instructor, educator, and enthusiastic Second Amendment proponent, David Lombardo.
Welcome to On Target Radio, America's voice for the Second Amendment. I'm David Lombardo, your host, and our co-host, Tim Dalan, across the council from me. Say hello, Tim.
Hello, everybody.
See, it's never gone the way I've planned.
I'm never sure what you want me to say.
No, you don't.
Usually you say hi, I say howdy. You don't like that. You say hello, I say hello. You didn't like that.
How about this? I'm David Lombardo, your host, and there's no one worth knowing sitting across from me. Every Sunday, Tim, every Sunday I'll be here from 9 to 10 p.m. Tim's questionable, talking about all things Second Amendment, and you, the listener, will have the opportunity to call in and talk to our guests. And we are hoping, this is the 18th week in a row. It's hard to believe it's been 18 weeks. 18th week in a row that we are inviting Chicago's Mayor Rahm Emanuel to come on and discuss gun control. More than ever, Mr. Mayor, we would like to fully understand your complex thinking on a subject which appears to so many people to be so simple to understand.
I have my granddaughter working on a ROM chair.
Do I want to ask?
Maybe not.
Yeah, probably not. We don't want the black SUVs in the driveway waiting for us.
Well.
Yeah, it is what it is. Tonight, we're going to talk about IGOLD, the Illinois Gun Owners Lobby Day, which will be coming up. We'll take your questions or comments to 312-642-5600, 312-642-5600. If you don't call in, you are a wuss. Or go to Facebook, like our page on Target Radio, and you can ask a question there if you want to hide in anonymity. But first, it's David's Rant of the Week.
Yay.
The National Rifle Association issued a statement on Thursday expressing concern over its meeting with President Obama, saying, "We were disappointed with how little this meeting had to do with keeping our children safe and how much it had to do with an agenda to attack the Second Amendment." Now, on the surface, one could commend the president as the White House held meetings with most of the major stakeholders in the issue, ranging from New York City's Mayor Bloomberg's Mayors Against Guns to the NRA and those in between. He even had the good sense to not put them all in the same room at the same time, though, frankly, squaring off and duking it out might have been fairer than the high-stakes poker game they played with a stacked deck. Of course, the NRA was invited to the show. There wouldn't have been a show if they had been excluded. The NRA was window dressing. They served no other purpose than to be a soundbite expressing how the administration reached out to all concerned parties and took their counsel into consideration. Let's face it, inviting the NRA to the White House to discuss a reasonable course of action to solve gun violence was like the moral equivalent of inviting a chicken to lunch at KFC. The meeting disappoints me too, but for a markedly different reason. What disappoints me is the NRA would issue a public statement saying they were disappointed. Seriously? The millions of dollars donated to the NRA Institute for Legislative Affairs are being handled by someone who didn't know this administration considers the NRA to be one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse? Someone who doesn't understand this has nothing to do with keeping children safe? If it were at all about keeping children safe, we'd put armed guards in schools, or better yet, as an increasing number of school boards are now advocating, letting educators carry concealed weapons. Now, the anti-gun crowd scoffs at this, though they didn't when President Clinton initiated a program to do that very thing, which to this day has schools with law enforcement officers in residence. Now they belittle the NRA's position to do the same thing. Yet the president's children go to a school with armed guards, and the president and mayors Bloomberg and Emanuel and a host of other anti-gun elected officials are surrounded by armed guards. Now, if it doesn't work, why are we spending millions of taxpayer dollars for them and their families to have armed guards? It's never been about keeping children safe. It will never be about keeping children safe. Let's get this straight. The left's psychotic need for gun control is only about keeping an ever-increasingly tyrannical politician safe. They can hardly wait for the next tragedy to occur so they can once again tout the need to disarm the public. Second Amendment be damned. Now, the recurring question these hypocrites ask, and they have the temerity to ask it behind a wall of armed guards, a protection which they would deny their own constituents, is why does a civilian need an assault weapon? Now, setting aside for the moment that the term assault weapon is a manufactured term to demonize a firearm based only on its appearance, the very act of them asking the question is exactly why civilians need an assault rifle. And that, Tim, is my rant for the week.
You know what? I'm actually very impressed this week. I like this one.
That means it's going to really flop with everybody else, doesn't it?
It was good.
Well, it is what it is.
You get a cookie.
You get his cookie. All right. So we're going to talk about Illinois Gun Owners Lobby Day, IGOLD. And our guest this evening in the studio is old friend, well, not old friend, a friend of a long time.
Yeah, because I'm pretty young.
Yeah, I got to be careful I say that. I got to
compared to you.
Yeah, thank you. So, do we have another guest lined up for the evening? Don Moran, president of the ISRA, and apparently a reject from the Second City School of Improv Comedy. How you doing, Don?
Good.
Thank you for
living the dream.
Living the dream. There you go. Phone's been busy at ISRA.
It's been pretty hectic the last few weeks. Yes.
Lots of interesting things have been happening. We're really here principally to talk about IGOLD, and I'm sure we're going to get all kinds of questions because you can't have a president on our show and not get. As a matter of fact, I see green lights coming up on the board, probably about Tim's beard, but let's talk a little bit about IGOLD since that's the purpose.
Hey, I trimmed it.
With what? Tell us what IGOLD actually is.
IGOLD is the Illinois Gun Owners Lobby Day, and it's a day in March, always the first week of March. This year it's the 6th of March. It's always on a Wednesday because the legislature is often not in session on Monday and they're not in session on Friday. And sometimes they come in late on Tuesdays and sometimes they leave early on Thursdays. And so Wednesday is the only day that we can be assured that the legislature will actually be in session when we bring everyone down there to speak to them.
Well, here's one nice thing about it. Originally, the legislature was envisioned to be a part-time thing that farmers did in the winter, right? It was a very part-time thing, and apparently the part-time part still sticks.
It is. It is still part-time.
We hate for them to be overworked. The calls are coming in here. We have a whole board is lit up, with white. But we do have a call, and it's going to be about, guess what? What's the favorite subject? Concealed carry. Concealed carry.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's a shocker, isn't it? But we have Mike from Elmwood, and he has a question about concealed carry, right, Mike?
Hi, Mike.
I'm sorry to change the subject, but, I heard about, the Illinois Supreme Court said, they had to change the concealed carry law. And, I was thinking about maybe getting something, to conceal and carry and passing all the tests or whatever you have to do. And I was wondering, do you think it's going to fly, or should I start thinking about something else instead of that?
Well, Christmas is past.
A wise man once told me, save your money, your kids will spend it. But I would say there is going to be a concealed carry bill in Illinois.
One way or the other.
It wasn't the Illinois Supreme Court. It was the 7th U.S. Court of Appeals. There is another case pending before the Illinois Supreme Court that could have the same result. We just don't know yet. Last Monday, the Illinois Attorney General Lisa Madigan filed for an en banc review of the 7th U.S. Court of Appeals decision and asked for the entire panel of justices on the 7th U.S. Court of Appeals to review that decision. And sometime in the next few weeks, they'll decide whether or not they take it. If they decide to take the case, then the decision, the 180-day deadline that they put on the legislature will fall, and the decision will be set aside until the en banc review is done. And if they decide not to take it in the next few weeks, then the 180-day deadline that the court put on them on the state of Illinois legislature on December 11th will continue on.
You're listening to Don Target Radio. This is AM 560 WIND. We're talking about IGOLD, actually, is the subject, although the calls are going to come in. One of the questions that came up on Facebook, because let's face it, this is really the hot topic, and we will talk about IGOLD, don't panic. But Dean on Facebook says CCW House Bill 154 was introduced on Friday, looking similar to the old House Bill 148. Do you see this being brought to a vote, given Madigan's request for a full review of the appeals court?
it's going to come out on the floor eventually. We'll see what happens in the next few weeks. There's plenty of time. In the next few weeks, something's going to happen with the 7th U.S. Court of Appeals. And when it happens, this thing will come to the floor, or it may come to the floor before that. It's not quite the same bill as House Bill 148. There's some changes in it, but it's similar.
I see. I'm looking at the synopsis of it right now on the House website, and I see something that I don't think that the ISRA would agree with, and I definitely don't agree with it. It says it provides for home rule preemption.
Oh, that's going to be a no-no. We're going to have to take a little break coming up here. We back after a few messages, and we certainly are going to talk about IGOLD. I know people keep calling in, but we are going to spend some time talking about a very important day. You want to mark your calendar for IGOLD, and we'll talk more about that on the way back.
You can find this podcast and others at Gun Rights Radio Network, gunrightsradio.com. Podcasting freedom.
Hi, I'm David Lombardo, host of On Target Radio. You're living proof that radio advertising reaches listeners. In the 2 years I've been advertising on AM 560 WIND, Safer USA grew from 300 students a year to over 1,200. By coupling our On Target Radio broadcast with our Facebook page, we found our audience is steadily growing, and in only 2 months it appears we've exceeded 5,000 listeners. Over 34% are in the age group 25 to 34, 26% are 35 to 44. We have listeners from Rockford to Western Michigan and Southern Wisconsin to St. Louis. Thanks to live streaming on the internet, we also have listeners as far away as Germany, Japan, and New Zealand. On Target Radio is offering low-cost sponsorship opportunities on Chicago's premier conservative talk radio station. Advertising on AM 560 WIND has worked for Safer USA. Let me show you how it can work for you. Call 815-744-5487. Join the On Target Radio team today at 815-744-5487.
You're listening to On Target on AM 560 WIND with David Lombardo. Here's David with more interesting conversation on firearms, safety, your Second Amendment rights, and much more.
And we're back, and it's time for that magic moment once again that you have all been sitting waiting for, well, at least Tim's parents, Tim's Fighting Back segment.
As brought to you by the Illinois State Rifle Association. One of our on-target radio friends, Jim P. in Mokina, passed this one to me, so good credit to Jim. I want to start off by saying, in my book, this Georgia mom rocks. A Loganville, Georgia mother of two assumed the knocks on her front door Friday afternoon, January 4th, were from a solicitor. When the visitor began repeatedly ringing the doorbell, she called her husband at work, who told her, "Get the kids and hide." As he dialed 911, his 37-year-old spouse, who works from home, collected the children and hid with them in a crawl space adjoining her office. By that time, the intruder had forced his way into the 3-story residence. He rummaged through the home, eventually working his way up to the attic office. He opens the closet door and finds himself staring down the barrel of a .38 revolver, said the sheriff. In fighting back, the woman fired 6 bullets, 5 of which hit Paul Allie Slater in the face and neck area, but Slater was still conscious. Mom then told him to stay down or she'd shoot again. She then grabbed her children and ran to the neighbor's house. The injured bad guy made it out of the home and into his car, driving away before the deputies arrived at the scene, but he didn't get far. Deputies found the bad guy bleeding profusely in the neighbor's driveway. He was transported to the local hospital where he is expected to survive, the sheriff said. The bad guy had just been released from jail in late August after serving time for battery and 3 counts of probation violation. He had also had 6 other arrests dating back to 2008. Her husband, Donnie Slater, stated, "My wife's a hero. She protected her kids. She did what she was supposed to do." The sheriff also stated, "That mother's instincts kicked in. You go after a mother's kids and she'll find herself capable of doing things she never thought she was capable of. Georgia mom, you're also a hero in my book." This has been Fighting Back, brought to you by the Illinois State Rifle Association.
And there you go. For over 100 years, the Illinois State Rifle Association has supported the rights and freedoms of Illinois citizens to keep and bear arms. For over 100 years, the ISRA has supported the use of firearms as a sport for personal protection and as a fundamental aspect of national defense. For over 100 years, the Illinois State Rifle Association has been supporting you. Don't you think it's time you supported them? ISRA.org or 815-635-3198. That's 815-635-3198. the Illinois State Rifle Association, supporting you. And Tim and I are big supporters of the ISRA, are we not?
Yeah, and we're also both from Will County.
That's true. And
we would like to invite everybody to the monthly Will County ISRA meeting that is this week, Wednesday night at 7 p.m. at Ivo's Restaurant, IVO.
That's
IVO
it.
apostrophe S. It's at the
Marine.
intersection of Illinois or of Highway 55 and Illinois 6 in Shanahan. It's open to the public. You do not need to be an ISRA member to attend. It's always a good time. They tell us about what's going on in Springfield and Washington, D.C., and we always have a guest speaker. And this week's guest speaker is going to be...
Is Nick?
Yeah.
Nick Faruqi.
Nick Faruqi, our bud, who's just a superb hand-to-hand fighter. He's a great instructor. He travels over the country. He's people invite him all over the place to teach his classes, so it will be a really great one to come and see this Friday night, or this Wednesday night. I'm sorry.
And unfortunately, I'll be at the SHOT Show in Vegas.
Yeah, you will, but that's all right. We'll get along without you.
So that's look forward to that. We would love to have you come and join us at our local meeting in Will County. But back to the Question Illinois Gun Owners Lobby Day with Don Moran, president of the ISRA. You're listening to AM 560 WIND. This is On Target Radio. Don, let's talk a little bit about exactly what happens with IGOLD. How does this unfold during the course of a day?
All right. Well, the best way to get there is to go to our website and buy a ticket for a bus ride. We have buses from all over the state that takes care of your transportation needs. They stop for lunch on the way down, and they'll bring you back at the end of the day. So it's the simplest way to get there. We'll have what they do is they'll pick you up at some community near your home. There'll be meeting points. For instance, in Joliet, I think they meet at Gander Mountain at Route 30 and I-55. Everybody boards the bus. They take the bus down to Springfield. They stop somewhere in the Springfield area. They'll pick up lunch, and then they'll take everybody to the Prairie Convention Center, where we'll have a briefing for everyone. What we do is we'll have some speakers come in. We'll talk about what litigation or what legislation is up in Springfield this year, where we've been, where we're going. They'll explain to everyone how to speak to their legislator, how to find their legislator's office. We'll give them some cards to fill out that will tell them what bills we're concerned about and whether they should be for them or against them, and explain why. And then they'll be able to take those cards and we'll march to the Capitol from the Prairie Convention Center. It's about a half-mile walk, and it's very impressive. In past years, we've had 5,000 to 7,000 people walking down the street. That stretches out for about a half a mile from curb to curb.
Wow.
And I'd like to say, too, that when we do that march, if there are people that may not be able to walk that far, there will be buses to transport them to the Capitol building.
That's correct.
So can anybody attend this? You don't have to be an ISRA member.
You do not have to be an ISRA member. Anyone who's concerned about firearms rights.
And there's no cost, other than if you want to take the bus.
Correct.
That's interesting. Do you actually get to talk to legislators?
Depends.
Does Madigan come out and hug us and say we're all friends, we just have different opinions?
If Madigan is your legislator, there's a chance that you'll get the opportunity to talk to him. At the very least, you'll get to talk to his staff. And you'll be able to leave the cards and tell him what your opinion is on the bills. There's always a chance that sometimes the legislators do come out and, they'll have 25, 30 people standing in the lobby of their office waiting to talk to them. So they'll come out and they'll let everybody say what they've got on their mind and listen to them. And if they're good legislators, they'll do that.
I'm very lucky. Both my House rep and my senator, they're both pro-firearms. Tom Cross, minority leader in the House.
He's a great guy.
Oh, yeah, he's a great guy. He always will take time, even if he's super busy in a meeting, he'll come out, he'll say hi to people that are in there that day. Linda Holmes, my senator, she's great, too. So I'm lucky that I have two good people to represent me.
My thought is, if you talk to your representatives and they're pro-Second Amendment, and I'm not trying to be negative about this, but I'm just looking at this from a pragmatic perspective. If my legislator is a pro-Second Amendment person, then it's nice, you say hi to him, you wave and all that kind of stuff. But, he's already going to vote for you. Isn't it true? The real purpose of IGOLD is, do we actually change minds as individuals? Isn't it more that we have this gigantic mass of people that show strength? Because you're not going to change Madigan's mind no matter what you say.
You're not going to change Madigan's mind.
Right.
But what you will do is when there's 7,000, hopefully this year we'll up that number again. There's never been a more important time in the history of firearms rights in the state of Illinois for people to travel downstate to meet with the legislators, especially given what's happened in the legislation during the lame duck session and what they have prepared to bring out against us in this spring legislative session. When there's 7,000 people standing on the lawn of the Capitol building outside the governor's office, it's a very impressive mass. And what we do is on our website, when you go on there to buy your bus tickets, we also sell bright yellow hats and bright yellow T-shirts. And everybody wears those yellow hats and those yellow T-shirts, and it becomes very obvious who's in their state capitol and who is lobbying them. When they get inside the rotunda, we line the inside of the rotunda completely up through every level, and it's very impressive, all the yellow jerseys and yellow hats. Everybody knows who's there. So
somebody told me, I can't remember who, it might have been Tim, but somebody told me that they were told by some of the Capitol Guards that of all the groups that come there and do their thing, the two things that stuck out is no one comes close to the number, and our group of people are the neatest, cleanest, most polite of all.
I've heard that myself from the Capitol Guards also. And you know what else is unique to our group? What else is unique to our group is that they're polite to their legislators. They're not rude when they go in and talk to the legislators. It's a great crowd. They take their time going through the turnstiles and stuff. We use every entrance to the Capitol building and to the Stratton building in order to get everybody into the buildings. It's just they're not really set up, since they've added security with the metal detectors and stuff to the buildings. They're not really set up to bring that many people into the building at one time. So we have to bring everybody in through every available entrance in order to get them in a timely fashion. So.
And that does bring up an interesting point. I, for instance, always carry a pocket knife that Nick gave me. You do go through metal detectors.
Correct.
So you really have to be careful about what you bring if you go to this. Don't bring pocket knives, and don't bring anything that's going to get bounced back.
Correct.
Cell phones are okay. They let cell phones in there. You can take pictures, etc. But no.
Yeah, leave the knives and the nail files and the 38 specials home. Huh? All right, we're going to be back after these few messages with more On Target Radio.
Attention firearm owners or those considering exercising your Second Amendment rights. I want to tell you about Illinois Gun Works. From void services and new firearm purchases to gunsmith services and an indoor shooting range, Don and his staff will assist you without attitude or pressure. Need training? Illinois Gun Works' popular Illinois Responsible Firearm Owners class teaches you the regulations to legally defend yourself, own, and transport your firearm. There's a required class for a Chicago firearm permit and popular new shooter familiarization class, including one for women. Now, I took this class and urge you to reserve your spot fast for this fun class. Illinois Gun Works offers a wide selection of training and certification classes, from security work to those just considering ownership, even special group classes. Illinois Gun Works, Chicagoland's full-service firearm headquarters, is located on Grand Avenue, just a block west of Harlem in Elmwood Park. Call 708-452-0040 or visit IllinoisGunWorks.com. That's 708-452-0040.
You can hear Gun Rights Radio Network on Stitcher Smart Radio. Stitcher allows you to listen to your favorite shows directly from your iPhone, Android phone, BlackBerry, or Palm phones, on demand and on the go. Don't have Stitcher? Download it for free today at Stitcher.com or in the app stores. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio. Gun Rights Radio Network shows can be found under Sources.
You're listening to On Target Radio on AM 560 WIND with David Lombardo. Here's David with more interesting conversation on firearms, safety, your Second Amendment rights, and much more. To participate, call the studio at 312-642-5600.
And Mark asked on Facebook, he said, would an executive order for any gun control be challenged, executive order from the president, of course, be challenged as a violation of the Constitution, and how can it be fought? The president can write any executive order he wants. He can say everybody on Tuesday has to stand on one foot. The question is what happens after he writes the executive order.
Correct.
And he obviously would be taken to the woodshed, and it would be challenged.
Sure. So if he came out with an executive order saying banning all assault weapons, there would be 1 or 2% of the general population that own either SKSs, AK, semi-auto, AK-47s, AR-15s, that would probably turn them into their local police department, and 3 weeks later it would get jammed back down his throat. And in the meantime, for those 3 weeks, he made felons out of 17 million Americans.
Well, I think and of course, I'm not hardly a scholar on this subject, but we've got several of them who are listening to us.
But I play one on TV.
But I stated at Holiday Inn Express last night. But I think the president can write any executive order he wants to write because he has presidential power. The question I would actually have, if there's anybody listening who really does know the answer to this, and of course we won't know if they really do know the answer or not when they tell us, but if such an executive order were to be written, obviously there would be an immediate challenge to it. It would rise up, the hue and cry would rise from anyone. The real question ends up being, if an executive order is written and it is immediately challenged with a suit, does it stay the executive order until the settlement of the suit?
That's up to the court.
Right, that's up to the court. And that's actually the real question here. Whether or not, if an executive order were written, it would be enforceable immediately because there would immediately be a challenge to it. And none of us in this room certainly know the answer to that.
So, yeah, only the judge who's sitting in that court would know.
That's right. But we did get something from our friend Ed Ronkowski. And Ed says, after attending IGOLD and other Springfield events, I noticed the police officers who guard the government buildings carry Glocks with the same high-capacity magazines that Cullerton and Emanuel want to be banned. Well, that's really not a big surprise, Ed.
I think that'd be a standard capacity magazine.
Yeah, it'd be an issue.
There's, it's funny. Somebody sent me a picture the other day of a Chicago police officer's home, and that police officer was threatened by gang members in the city. And there was 4 or 5 Chicago police officers standing on the front porch with AR-15s or M16s with 30-round magazines in them, protecting that officer's house. And, if it's necessary for the police to have that to protect themselves from the gang members, why should it be improper for a civilian to have that same thing to protect themselves from gang members?
It's the same sad story about how they tell us you shouldn't have anyone armed in schools, and yet most of the higher-ranking elected officials' kids go to schools with armed guards. And the Chicago City Council is notorious for that. I mean, just notorious about how they're all anti-gun, and in fact, they themselves do.
There certainly seems to be a number of people who are popping up lately with the perk card that allows them to carry as an armed guard from their work and to their home, and yet they're politicians. They have this armed guard authorization to carry a concealed firearm from their work to their home, but they don't get a paycheck from a security company. And, it sure sounds like maybe there's a fix in here that says, if I get pinched someplace, you guys just say I was working, and that way I'm covered.
Oh, yeah, I've heard stories about that for over and over for several years.
There's been a few of them recently, though.
Yeah.
That have come up in the news.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of them is, he just decided not to. Well, I better be quiet.
He's still a politician.
He's still a politician. Hey, I had a question about IGOLD, Don.
Yep.
Every once in a while you'll see somebody bring their grandkid down there. Is that fine for people to bring their kids down to IGOLD?
Sure, absolutely. They should see how the legislature works.
Do we really want to do that?
Why not?
You want your kid to see what's going on down there?
They can't really see how the legislature works. They can see, the textbook way that it's written in the book.
Facade of it.
It says what it's supposed to work like.
They see the pretty statues and columns and stuff.
I think the way that we go down there, though, as Don has said, we get in that building. It's discussed beforehand to be very respectful, to be very friendly to everybody in the Capitol building, and I think that that's at least the way you would want your children to see the Capitol. Civility and friendliness. It is beautiful building. Sure. Beautiful building.
One thing too about our group that is uncommon to a lot of the groups that come down there is these people are coming down there on their own dime.
Right.
They're paying for their bus ride, or they're driving their car. They're taking a day off from work. Okay, so they're taking a vacation day from work that day, so they're not making any money that day. They're walking away from their business for the day so that they can come down there to speak to their legislature. It's not a bunch of school kids that are bussed in by a school district or something like that somebody else is paying for or labor union is paying for to send them down there. These are people that are going on their own dime.
Right.
Okay, we're going to be back after a few messages. We're going to talk a little more about IGOLD, and we're going to talk to Rich from Missouri who wants to talk about concealed carry for teachers. That's all coming up after these messages. You're listening to On Target Radio, AM 560 WIND.
For 35 years, Pelcher's Shooter's Supply has served the Lansing area. Pelcher's offers new and used firearms sales, appraisals, and gunsmithing service. Pelcher's new spacious showroom has hundreds of major brand firearms and supplies, and PelcherGuns.com features daily specials. Pelcher's Shooter's Supply, on the corner of Ridge Road and Henry Street in downtown Lansing. Online at PelcherGuns.com or call 708-474-0662.
We now return to On Target on AM 560 WIND. If you have a question or opinion, the studio line is 312-642-5600. Now, here's your host, firearm expert and educator, David Lombardo.
And this segment is brought to you by the Chicagoland Gun Show. The all-new Chicagoland Gun Show is coming to the Stevens Convention Center in Rosemont, January 25th through 27th. Join Tim and I for 3 days of shooting sports, products, and firearm education. Learn from the expert with classes focusing on the basics of tactical shooting, the truth about self-defense training, selecting a home defense firearm, protecting your gun rights in Illinois, women's programs, up-to-the-minute news on Illinois concealed carry, and more. All seminars are free with your $10 paid admission, and be sure to attend Safer USA's 4-hour Utah concealed carry class, which we're going to put on for $25. In addition, your entry ticket gets you access to the co-located Chicago Outdoor Sports Show. Buy your tickets online now at ChicagolandGunShow.com to save. January 25th through January 27th at the Stevens Convention Center in Rosemont. Don't miss it. And we're going to do that, right, Tim?
We're going to be there. I think it's going to be a really great time. We did the outdoor show before already, but the gun show that's going to be there this time, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yep. And several of our advertisers will be there. ISRA is going to be there. And we're all going to be clustered together right by the stage. We're providing speakers on a whole lot of different subjects. And so it's just going to be a fun time. And one of those subjects is obviously going to be about concealed carry. And we have Rich from Missouri who would like to comment about concealed carry for teachers. Say hi, Rich.
Hi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. What's your comment about concealed carry?
I'm from a small town in Missouri. I'm working over here in Chicago, and it's, for one, kind of upsetting to me that I can't carry over here. And for two, in the small town that I live in, there is a lot of talk about, and I think there's even a bill been put into process for the possibility of teachers to carry concealed in Missouri. There's nobody there. I have 2 kids in high school. There's nobody there to protect the kids. And I think, the teachers aren't there to protect the kids, but if a couple of them in each hallway were carrying a gun, it would sure make me feel a lot better.
Well, thank you for calling, Rich, and I think you have a sympathetic group of people sitting around this table. We were on the break, in fact, talking about that very subject. In Utah, you have been allowed to carry concealed firearm into the schools in Utah for quite some time. Can anybody name any time that someone went in and shot up a school in Utah? They don't. With, I think, one exception. My recollection is, with one exception, every one of these school shooting things and every one of these group mass murder things have been always at places that were gun-free.
That's correct.
I think there was one, if I recall.
I believe you're correct.
Yeah, and I don't remember what it was, but of all the ones that they've always been in gun-free zones.
Gun-free zone, that's just so silly. The only people that are going to pay attention to a sign that says gun-free zone are law-abiding people. Gun owners that have concealed carry permits, they're going to see that sign and they're going to leave their gun in the car. No criminal is going to do that. Excuse me, people who put up those signs. I'm getting wound up here. You are stupid people. You put up a sign that says a gun-free zone. What the heck are you thinking?
Might as well put a target on your chest.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just plain flat-out stupidity. Lee asks about the history of IGOLD, when it started and how it has progressed to the present. Also, how do the politicians react to the event, Don?
Well, we've been having lobby days in Springfield, the ISRA has, since probably the mid-'60s, the mid-1960s. And over the course of the last 10 years, I'd say, we've started really involving more people, bringing the busloads of people and stuff to Springfield. When they see 7,000 people on the lawn outside the Capitol or marching down the street to the Capitol from the Prairie Convention Center, when they turn the corner onto that street and they head up to the Capitol and they're at the base of the Lincoln Steps, that line of people with yellow shirts on and yellow hats on goes back as far as you can see up the street that runs up to the Capitol. It's a very impressive sight, and they know we're there. For the most part, the legislature, all the legislators take it very well. They're very impressed by how orderly our people are, how polite they are, and the numbers of people that we churn out there. It's made even that much more obvious to them because everybody's wearing the yellow.
We have about a minute here. John asks, would it be to our benefit for the legislature to not pass concealed carry legislation within the 6 months? In that case, would the court dictate the new concealed carry law? He says, I can't see their view being worse than the legislature's.
The courts will not write legislation.
They don't write legislation.
They won't write legislation.
They demand you do it.
And what happens right now is if the legislature doesn't act, and there's a lot of little tiny loopholes and stuff in the law, they're going to get people into trouble. For instance, there's other parts of the statutes that cover carrying a firearm in an establishment that sells liquor. So if you stop to get gas and you walk into the gas station and they sell beer and liquor, then you're committing a felony, even though it's not the unlawful use of weapons statute has been struck down. And there's a lot of little things like that are in the statutes right now. So there needs to be a bill to clean the whole thing up so everybody understands where they can carry, where they can't carry.
And basically the problem of writing any law is the unintended consequences. People think, why don't we just pass a law to do this? But they don't think through all the way it ripples down the road and
like
how
gun
it affects
control.
things. Exactly. That's exactly right. I mean, that is the classic example. Look at gun control. When we teach the home protection and concealed carry seminar, one of the things we show people is a book of just federal laws, just federal gun laws.
It's about 1.25 inches thick.
Yeah, and people say we need more laws.
I asked a fellow today from the Cook County State's Attorney's Office I ran into that why people aren't prosecuted under the federal law when they're a prohibited person and they're carrying a firearm.
It's crazy. We'll be back and talk more about that in just a few moments. I'm David Lombardo, president of Safer USA, Chicagoland's most popular firearm training school. We continue to offer our popular home protection and concealed carry seminar every month. This 8-hour seminar covers everything you need to know to safely and legally use a firearm for both concealed carry and home invasion, and qualifies you for Florida and Utah concealed carry permits good in about 30 states. Be sure to call and ask how we can help you raise funds for your organization or provide a guest speaker. We're also offering the NRA Basic Pistol Course and our Tactical Pistol 1 and 2. As always, I offer private one-on-one instruction for Basic Pistol, Chicago Firearm Certification, and Basic Home Defense. For further information, please call 877-954-3030 or go to saferusa.com. Safer USA, choosing to own a firearm is your business. Teaching to own it responsibly is ours.
That's 877-954-3030 or saferusa.com.
You're listening to On Target on AM 560 WIND with David Lombardo. Here's David with more interesting conversation on firearms, safety, your Second Amendment rights, and much more.
So everybody get out your calendar and mark.
Easy for
we'll
you to
try it
say.
in English this time. Mark your calendar for March 6th. Wednesday, March 6th is IGOLD. Don, tell them how they can find out about it again.
www.isra.org. And look on the left-hand side. There'll be a link to IGOLD, a button on the left-hand side. Click on it. It'll give you information. It'll also be a link from the page it takes you to that'll get you to our store where you can order a bus ride. That's absolutely the best way to get there. You can share a little camaraderie on the ride down and on the ride back, and you don't have to worry about finding some place to park in Springfield when the legislature's in session. That's a real nightmare.
Got to be a zoo.
The bus is great. You meet the camaraderie. You meet so many people. You'll make so many new friends. You'll talk about the same things on the way there and the way back. Yeah, you can take a nap there and back if you want. It's a great way to get there.
Be perfect for me then.
Yeah, it would.
You never know who you'll meet on the bus, too. Sometimes I ride the bus. I once had a conversation all the way to Springfield and all the way back with a young man named Otis McDonald, who ended up being a plaintiff in McDonald versus Chicago
Is that
case.
Right?
Yep.
That's kind of cool.
The first time I went, I sat right next to Al Tiscarino, one of the directors of the ISRA, not knowing that at the time, but I talked his ear off all the way there and back. He didn't want to sit by me for the next 2 years after that.
Let me say this. This year, more important than ever before.
Absolutely.
During the lame duck session, they tried to ban every semi-automatic firearm with a removable magazine twice. Once in the Senate, once in the House. Okay, there's never, ever been a time that it's been more important to fight for your firearms rights here in Illinois. So make sure that everybody goes. Everybody takes that day off of work. Schedule it now. Make sure that you're ready to go. Tell everybody you know that's concerned about firearms rights and make sure every one of them shows up. Even if you've got friendly legislators, go down there, spend a day, and tell them how happy you are with what a great job they're doing. And your yellow hat and your yellow shirt is going to show up to those legislators that aren't on our side of the issue, and they're going to know that there's that many bodies out there that are against what they're trying to do to you.
We hear all the time that, well, there's so many people going down there. What's one more going to do? One more and one more and one more. If half the people that said, what good am I going to do, would go, you couldn't even move inside that rotunda. Everybody needs to go. It's so important.
There's over 1.4 million firearm owners in the state of Illinois that have FOID cards.
Yeah.
Okay. And, if we can't get 10,000 people down there that are concerned about their rights, and there's a lot more people that are just concerned about their constitutional rights that don't even have firearms.
The thing
that
I find very interesting is when on Wednesday, Richard Pearson told us that they were putting this bill into the Senate. It was in the Senate committee, and they were going to pass it out. And the word went out. ISRA sent out a thing. We sent out a thing to all our people. By 7 o'clock that night, every single senator's voicemail was full. And then when they switched it over to the House, and again, out came the word, by that evening, every single voicemail was full. And both times, they backed off.
But listen to this. They only have to give 1 hour notice to call a bill.
No, I know that. And that's why.
So it's high speed. So it's very important that we have our lobbyists in place every time the legislature's in session.
And that's my point, Don. My point is, you say I'm only one person. One adds up. And if 10,000 people are standing out there, that's the equivalent of jamming every senator's voicemail, every congressman's voicemail. It's 1 day out of your life. If you can't take 1 day out of your life to be concerned about your own firearm privileges, then tough luck.
To protect your rights as a gun owner in this state, you cannot let other people do it for you.
We'd like to thank
Don
Moran for
think
coming
about this.
tonight.
One more thing. A part-time lobbyist costs about $40,000 a year. And if 10,000 people showed up there and everybody gave $5, we might be able to hire another lobbyist.
Okay, well, we're going to wrap the show up without thanking anybody because we don't care.
Yes, we do.
So just come back at 9 o'clock next week. We're going to have a very dear friend on then, Bill Jones, talking about African safaris. Everything you have ever wanted to know about an African safari. Sorry for not saying thanks to everybody you always do. We got a bunch of long gas baggy guys tonight. See you next week.
Bye.